employee training, leadership, and sales management. And she has designed and delivered high impact programs across diverse organizations to bring insights into workplace dynamics, human behavior, and negotiation. So, in our topic today, she's going to help us build a strong foundation for salary negotiations by identifying our unique strengths and translating skills into measurable achievements using the STAR method. So we're going to learn more about that. So the session includes a practical skills gap analysis and actionable growth strategies that we can apply immediately. So very exciting. Let's welcome Jo.
Good morning. I'm so excited to be with you all today. I went to UVU many years ago, and I was never at this campus at 8:30 in the morning. So I appreciate you showing up and being with us. We get to do life together for 1 hour. I'm happy to be here. As mentioned, in my former life, I climbed the corporate ladder. I ran sales teams. I was a division head in learning and development. So I have had hundreds of interviews and negotiation conversations as a leader. I now am a business owner, and I hope that I can come with the perspective of what a hiring manager, what a business owner would be looking for in those conversations. Today, we're going to talk more about the mindset and the mental components entering into a negotiation conversation. Oh, thank you so much. On a personal note, so as I mentioned, I climbed the corporate ladder. I left college and I started at an entry-level position. And I sat in that training class and they said, I'm going to be the director of learning and development. That was a role they didn't even have at the time at the organization I was at, but I'm like, I'm going to get it and I know it. Over the course of 7 years, I put my nose down. I worked my tail off. I received 6 promotions, with the 6th one being director of learning and development. Very soon after, I became pregnant with my first child, and I exited corporate America for a few years. My issue with negotiation happened when I re-entered corporate America, because I re-entered with some really intense core beliefs surrounding motherhood and being a professional. Those beliefs were limiting. They led me down a path where I sought out a position that was much lower than my capacity, my capability, and far behind what I financially was doing prior. So that was based on my beliefs. So we're going to talk about that first. What are our beliefs as we enter into those conversations? What do we believe we deserve? What do we believe we're capable of? And we're going to get rid of those beliefs that aren't serving us, connect to the ones that will. We're also going to, you cannot speak to something you do not know about. No one in this room, if you knew me, would ask me to speak to the workings of a car. I drive on a flat tire. I ignore flashing lights. You would not expect me to come up here and talk to you about how a car works. I cannot speak to my value if I am not connected to it, if I don't understand it, if I haven't looked at what I uniquely can provide to an organization. So we're going to do some work to really understand, what do you uniquely provide that you will speak to in those conversations. And then we're going to talk about, how do we communicate that clearly and effectively, and in a way that a hiring manager would be like, yeah, that's great. I think that this person is onto something. So let's go ahead and hop in and talk about a bias. Can anyone say, what is a bias? If you were to quickly describe a bias, what would that be? Anyone brave this morning? I can give you some clues. I'll go ahead. So a bias, it is very normal. This is how our brains work, is that we want to categorize things. When we are little, we start going, this is how I'm supposed to be, this is how I'm not supposed to be, and we put it all in buckets, right? It's normal, it's how our minds work, but sometimes those biases can impact how we treat others. Sometimes those biases can impact how we treat ourselves. Okay, so we really want to take the time to think about what biases that we might have about ourselves, about work that would limit us. The power of our beliefs. Now, I want to do just a really quick activity to help us all understand the power of the beliefs that we have. Again, those biases that we might have, good or bad. And I want you to think about something that just comes really easily to you, something that you don't really have to work hard at. It's always just kind of natural. So some examples might be, I'm always good at sports. No matter what, if I touch a sports activity, I'm going to do well. Or I can make friends really easily. I can walk into a room and I know how to make a friend. I can learn things easy. I can see how things work easy. I'm detail oriented. So just think really quickly, what's that thing for you? I'm going to give you like 10 seconds. Now, I'd like you to think about what are the beliefs you have surrounding that thing. If it's me, I make friends easily. So a lot of the beliefs that I have when I'm going into a room is like, I know I can find a friend. I know I can find something in common with anybody. That feels easy to me. What are the beliefs you have around that thing? Now, think about something you struggle with, something that doesn't come easy. If we were to flip that around, I don't make friends easy. That comes really hard for me. So, what is that thing for you? What is that thing you struggle with? It just never seems to work. And what are your thoughts surrounding that? Are your thoughts, I can never walk into a room, and people just don't like me. I always leave a party alone. I never can connect with people, or I can never show up in a way that I feel proud of. What is the thought you have about the thing that does not come easy to you? So, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? We might look at something that comes easy to us and we might go, well, yeah, I have all these great positive thoughts about it because it's always easy and it's always been easy. And so I have these positive beliefs about it. And the things that come hard to us, we might go, well, yeah, of course I have those beliefs. It's always been hard. It never works out for me. This is my reality. What I will say, I don't know which comes first, the chicken or the egg, but what I know is that with neuroplasticity, we can change our beliefs. If we have a thought that is not serving us, if we have something that is hard for us, we can change that belief. We can change that thought to line up to make it into something that does work for us, something that is a strength for us. So we can see the things that we do really well, we've got great beliefs surrounding it. The things that we don't, we typically have negative beliefs surrounding it. So, what we want to talk about today is some beliefs that we might have regarding who we are professionally or having those negotiation conversations. We want to think about the beliefs that do not serve us because we've got to work on shifting those out. When I tell you the story about me re entering into the professional world, my skills were not diminished. My capacity was not diminished. My work ethic was not diminished. My beliefs created a situation where my reality was diminished. I took such a huge step back because of them. So it doesn't matter what skills we have or how great we are or how capable we are. If this is not right, we will enter into those conversations pretty shaky and not very confident and not connected to our sense of worthiness and our sense of value that will come through and it will have an impact. So Let's talk. Oh, and I'll read this really quick. For me, the process of embodying confidence was less about convincing myself of my own worth and more about rejecting and unlearning what society had hammered into me. We all have these biases that aren't working for us. So we've got to let them go. Our activity now is the limiting belief activity. I would like you to take just 15 seconds to think about a belief you have about work, interviewing, negotiating that might feel painful, limiting, or disempowering. What are you anxious about? What makes you nervous about entering into those conversations? So here's a couple examples. I feel like I don't have the right to ask for a salary I know I will work for, but I don't have that right. I feel like I should just be grateful. Some other ones might be, I'm so desperate for this job, I don't want to make someone mad. All right. So I want you to think, just take a second. What is that thought for you? Does anyone want to share their thought? I bet many people in the room have the same thought if you have one. Yes. Oh, sorry. We'll let you. Thank you.
This is really official. I've just been in the interview process for the past few weeks, and it is crazy out there because I think a lot more people were just like on top of it in school, and I was just trying to like get through school. And so it's hard for me because my limiting belief is, well, I don't have as much experience, and so like I have to not make them mad in the interview process
Yeah.
because like this is my chance if I do get an interview or a few. So
That's so good. Anyone else have ever had that thought before? Right? Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. Anyone else want to be brave and share their limiting belief? Thank you.
So like I've always worked in government. So for me, it's always like, well, that's not how the system works. Like there's a set system, you put in your experience, you put in like your stuff, and then they give you what like the system pulls out. But like working here long enough, there is room for negotiation and people do get higher salaries. You just have to ask for it and push for it instead of just like believing the system is going to work for you.
Yes, that's a great one. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else?
I've mostly worked as a stay-at-home mom, and then I got a job that was, part-time, and then I came back to go to school, and I really don't know what I'm worth. Like, I know I did a lot of things for a lot of years volunteering, but I don't know what I really have to offer and what it's worth.
Yeah, thank you. That's a big one. That's a big one. Totally get that.
Playing off what she said, I sometimes, coming back into the workforce, I sometimes feel like everybody knows more because I, there's so much more new technology, or maybe somebody else can do the job just as well. But it is interesting as I go along that the experience really does play a part of that too. So it's hard to see how that transfers into the workforce, but I know there's skills out there that I've
Yeah.
learned.
Yeah. Thank you. Any final before we move on? Thank you for sharing. That's very brave. And I think most of us can at least understand each one of those, even if it's not something we specifically have felt. So, whatever your belief was, when I believe this as truth, if I believe it as if it were true, how do I behave? How do I act? How do I show up? How do I enter into a conversation? How do I enter into a negotiation? If I feel like someone is so much better than me, I'm not qualified, I'm not great, I haven't done this before, how do I engage in those conversations? I want you to really think about that. Or how do you not try to begin with? How does it impact your behavior to believe it as if it were true? This is a more personal answer, but does anyone want to share?
I think I struggle a lot with feeling unqualified for positions, so I tend to not reach out or to go for opportunities that I feel I may not have deserved yet.
Mm.
And so that's something that I've been working on is just trying to go for the opportunity, even if I don't necessarily think it's perfect or um, just kind of putting myself out there.
Yeah, thank you. You don't even try. That's a big one, right? Anyone else?
I guess somewhat similarly, it's, yeah, you just don't really commit as much. You're not going to put yourself out there as much. There's more, you feel like there's this bigger chance of failure if you put yourself out there more. So then you're not even giving what you do have. Even if you are inexperienced, you're not even putting out the things you do have to offer.
Yeah, you're minimizing your value because of the few areas you might not be great at. Yeah, it's a great one. Anyone else? As I mentioned with my limiting belief, I did not even look for possibility. I didn't even look for it. I thought there's not a world in which I can have my ambition and my responsibilities as a mom. There's not. That's not possible. And so I didn't even look for it. And so I went to a situation that I knew would give me flexibility, but it made me pull way back on my ambition. And then what happened was that's impossible for me. I've always been ambitious. And so I ended up doing this much work. I was doing this much work at this level. So that's what it did for me. So what I hear people saying is I don't even try, or I don't try as big as I could. I don't look for possibility. The next one, just a reminder, for something to be the truth, a universal truth, it has to always be true. 1 + 1 is 2. Okay? We can think of thought so many times. We can have a belief that we have thought so many times that we think it's true. It's true. And then we might be in a room where it is true. So we can go, see, see, see. But we've got to question that. Those limiting thoughts, those beliefs that are keeping us small, we have to at least put a little space between it and recognize it might feel true, it might look true, but it's not true. So what I would like you to do is that limiting belief that you have, that thought that you have that is keeping you small or holding you back, find one example out in the world, one example where it's not true. And think about that and hold on to that. All right. So take some time today. If you can't see it now, look for it. Is there any situation in the world where a woman can be ambitious and a mother? Is there anywhere where that is true? I had to start doing that. And by the way, this is the work that I did. Just to let you know, I did all of this work when I was in that situation. And then the story ends with me finding a position and accepting a position where I doubled my salary, where I had total flexibility. I worked for a CEO that often I would be on a business call with him while he was picking his daughter up from school and I was picking up mine. So that's the situation I ended up in after I did this work. So it works. The last one that I really want you to think about, because this is where we allow our imagination to work in our favor. This is where we allow possibility to enter the room. How would you behave if you could not think that disempowering thought? How would you show up in an interview? How would you show up in a negotiation conversation? How would you speak to your worthiness? How would you speak to those areas where you're great? What would you look for? What would you do different? And I think you would get a totally different answer than when I believe this thought is true, how do I behave? Because we would say, I would look for the biggest opportunity. I would look for the most money. I would look for the job that stretched me the furthest because I know I can have it and I know I can do it. So that feels a lot different than the one before, right? Okay. The next one is if we're going to eliminate those negative, disempowering beliefs, we want to fill it with some positive, empowering beliefs. I would like you all to just take a minute to think about an empowering belief that you want to embody. Often this can be the opposite of what you did before. So an example would be, I know that I will bring tremendous value to this position. I deserve to advocate for myself and I deserve a salary that matches my effort and value. I know that there's people that are great, but I am too. I know there's people that are valuable, but so am I. I know that this is the salary that they're posting, but I know the effort I'm going to provide. Those are the empowering beliefs. I know that I can be attached to my worthiness and speak up for myself and that's okay. And if it's not, I don't want to work there anyway. We can have some empowering beliefs that we're going to use as we enter into our interview process and our negotiation process. And then you have to make it a practice. That's neuroplasticity. You have to repeat that belief and that thought just as much as you repeated the one before. If we're going to have a lifetime of saying, I don't deserve or I'm not good enough, we have to combat that with a lot of, reprogramming. So for me, I like to do visualizations. That's something that really works for me. When I would go into an interview process, I would imagine that conversation. I would imagine it going well. I would imagine myself feeling my most, empowered self going into it. So whatever works for you, whether it's writing it down, doing a mantra, repeating it, it's a reprogramming, but it's worth it. Okay, so the next one, we've kind of gotten rid of our disempowering beliefs. We're now entering into our empowering beliefs, so we've got that set up. The next thing is we have to connect to our sense of value and be able to speak to that. If you don't self-promote, your contributions will probably not be visible nor recognized, which will limit your ability to get a promotion, a raise, or important projects that will help you advance in your career. So the next step is to be aware of our specific gifts, our talents, and our strengths so that we can easily promote ourselves. It's not easy. I remember there was a time where the thought of putting together a resume terrified me. And it wasn't because I wasn't capable. It wasn't because I didn't have a list of accolades or things I had achieved. It was just so uncomfortable for me to say what I was great at. And like I was saying with the mechanic thing, I wasn't connected to it. I didn't understand my sense of value out in the world professionally. So we want to connect to it, and then we need to be able to communicate to it. So we've got 4 different activities that we're going to do. This is a lot of information, so we're going to go through quickly, but they're all simple. So simple usually works. All right, the first one that we're going to talk about is our superpowers. And what I want you to do is think about what your superpower is. Just because something is easy does not mean it's not profound. And a lot of times, the thing that comes easy to us, the thing that comes natural to us, that is our superpower. But we live in a world that says everything has to be hard, the grit, the grind, which is important. But don't diminish those things that come very naturally to you. Every one of you does something better than most other people. That's just how that's just human. I do not know how to handle this microphone, but you do. I'm not great at details. I'm not great at a lot of things, but I can stand up in front of you and speak. So I think you want to take just a moment to really think about those moments in your day, in your work, of things that light you up, things that feel flowy, something that you get involved in where you lose time. For me now, I'm building a business. It's something I love so much and feel so passionate about. I have to set my alarm so I remember to pick up my kids. Right? So those are things that I feel I came to this earth to do. It's my superpower. It's what I'm great at. I forget to eat, and I never forget to eat. I'm starting a food brand. I love food. What is that for you? Or something that just excites you when you talk about it, you kind of light up. We want to identify these things, and sometimes it takes sitting with yourself and paying attention. What makes me feel energized? What do I walk away from? And I'm like, that was so fun. I loved doing that. What is that thing, and why did it light you up? Were you talking to a customer? People don't really see. Were you fixing a process, making it more streamlined? What are those things that you are great at? You have got to connect to this so you can speak to it. Because I promise, if you speak to it, it is going to come through. People are going to be like, whoa, it's electric. It gives us this energy that someone is going to notice in an interview. So I want you to just write that down, whether it's right now or later today. And if you're so disconnected from that, that's okay. I was too. And I worked at a position I actually absolutely hated. And I was so miserable that I did this work just to find happiness. And I was like, what is it in this job that I like? What is it that lights me up, that I can feel excited about, that I can look forward to in my day? And I promise if you pay attention, you will find little things. Pull them out and see what it is and see how it can specifically connect to an organization and specifically provide value to that organization. Okay, the next one is overlooked skills. And as was mentioned, sometimes we've left the workforce for motherhood or parenting. We're new to the workforce, as many of you probably are. And so you don't really know what am I going to speak to? What am I going to share? I don't have a huge resume. What are those skills that you do again that might not be something you would traditionally think about? Look at your sports experience. You can look at your volunteer experience. You can look at the way you navigate a friend group. I'm the one that plans all the girl trips, right? I put it all together. I plan it all. I project manage those things. I'm a strategic thinker. I have political savvy. I can navigate a room. I can network really well. I'm a natural leader. People always come to me for advice. I'm a great decision maker. I'm decisive. I have influence without authority. I don't have to be an executive for people to want to ask me a question. I'm great at relationship building. Think about these things. Again, we want to collect as much data as you can about who you are and the value that you bring. Here's an example. Although I'm not in a leadership position, I rallied my team together to problem solve and strategize ways to streamline our current processes. Our revisions resulted in 100 additional invoices being sent out to debtors each week, which lowered our average days to pay down from 25 to 15 days. One bit of advice here is to have a document on your computer that's like yeah, I did that. And you're going to put it all down. Because a lot of times when it comes time to look for a new job or it comes time to get into that process, you're just like, I don't even know. I don't know what I do. I don't know. So things like this that might not be a specific task or in your exact, list of things that you do in your day, you want to write them down. You can write down things like people always come to me as the person who has all the information. Or I mentored 3 employees who were all promoted within a year. We're going to collect data, collect data, collect data, collect data all the time, collect data. This is what I do in my life. This is what I do at work. From that list that we've just kind of collected, with the tasks that you've already done in your work or in your school or in your volunteer or whatever it may be that you can pull from, the next step that we're going to take is to have really powerful achievement statements. This one is like one of my favorite things, and ChatGPT is so helpful with this. This is so easy to do now. You're going to take that list that we've just created. And again, you can also, if you've already worked at an organization, you can ask for, what's the job description of the job I'm doing right now? All of the tasks, all of the things that you do day to day. And then you're going to identify the broader business impact. Now, remember, when you're sitting down with a hiring manager, when you're sitting down with a business owner, they are looking to see, are you capable of doing this thing? Are you going to bring value to this organization? Are you going to make my life easier? Ultimately, is what they're looking for. So we want to be able to speak to the impact that our specific value has on the organization. Whenever you can, and on your yeah, I did that list, you want to quantify the results wherever possible. I worked at Crumble Cookies, and I produced 10,000 cookies a day, producing $10,000 revenue. Right? Whatever it is that you're doing, try your best to quantify it. Put numbers to it wherever possible. So there's a method called the STAR method. You're taking a situation. This is the thing I was dealing with. Here is the specific task that I was doing. This is the specific action I took, and this is the result. And we're going to articulate that as often as possible. There are some soft skills that we have, like people feel at ease when I talk to them. You know, you can't quantify that, but the things that you can, always look for the broader business impact and how it's affecting that. And when you are speaking in a negotiation, you want to have, or in an interview, you want to have that a couple of these, if possible, that you can speak to. So I'm going to read, this is the situation, and then we're going to do a polished version of it, but this is just to help you kind of understand this is the way that we want to speak to ourselves. As a sales manager, overseeing a team of 10 employees, task, to ensure consistent, or sorry, that was the situation, task, to ensure consistent achievement of weekly revenue goals. Action, I implemented structured weekly one-on-one meetings focused on KPI analysis, achievement recognition, weakness identification, and roadblock resolution. The result, driving consistent monthly team revenue of $100,000. Obviously, that's wordy. So we're going to say, I led a 10-person sales team through implementation of structured weekly one-on-one meetings focused on KPI analysis and performance optimization, resulting in consistent monthly team revenue of $100,000. Again, you might not have something that is that specific or that intense. You might not, but take whatever you have and do your best to turn it into something like that. Because again, our goal is to show we are valuable. This is how we will add value to this organization. And it might not be in every single area that they're looking for, but you're going to wow them in the areas that you can. Any questions or comments about this? Has anyone ever done? Yeah, thank you.
Would it help to bring a portfolio with all the things you wrote down? Like, hey, like I don't have the figures off the top of my head, but here's my portfolio if we could look at it together, or would that be unprofessional, or what do you think?
I think anytime you can demonstrate your specific value is a positive thing. And I even think showing up in that way, prepared and with your list, that is an important thing. It's every single moment you are demonstrating, I can do this. This is who I am. This is how I'm showing up. So absolutely, if someone walked into my office and they're like, here's my list, right? I view that as you did the work, you put in the time, you know your value. You know it. I like that. Who wouldn't like that? It's great. Anyone else have any thoughts or comments about this? Again, if you can just have in your mind, and let's go a step before, you have to know it yourself first. How are you of value? And you are. You are. But you have to know that first so that you can then speak to it in whatever way. The next step that you need to take and prepare for is that skills gap analysis. A few of you mentioned this anxiety surrounding, well, someone else might be better than me. Someone else might have more experience than me. Someone else might be more valuable than me. But I will say, if you enter into those conversations really aware of the things that you know you need to grow in, or even in that specific job, the skills you need to develop to fully do it well, you can speak to that. You can speak to those things. So whether they are specific tasks that the company or organization is asking for that you might feel anxious about, speak to it. Or if it's personal goals you have, you know, little young Joe going, I want to be the director of learning and development. That was so ambitious for me in an entry level position. But had I gone into even my first interview and said, this is what I'm shooting for, this is what I'm looking at, I'm going to climb this ladder, and every step along the way, I'm going to do my best and work my hardest, but this is where I'm going. Don't you think someone is impressed by that? So I would like you to take just 10, 15 seconds. We'll do a little pause. I'd like you to think about an area where you feel like you have a gap. I might not be great at this, and this is a skill I want to develop. I'd like you to just we'll take a few seconds there. Now, I would like you to think about what you're going to do or what you would like to do to develop that. I'm going to get a mentor. I'm going to go online and do a tutorial. Whatever it may be, I'm going to refine this skill and how you're going to go about doing that. And this also helps in the interview if people still will ask what's your greatest weakness, you're ready. This is the area I already know that I want to work on. I believe that this demonstrates, again, your value of being a growth-oriented person, which is also valuable to a employer. Any questions about this, or anyone have any comments about this or how to navigate it? Okay. So our takeaways, we're going back and looking at it all. Number one, the very first thing that we have to remember and think through are what are those beliefs that we have that are keeping us small, that are keeping us away from possibility, that are making us look into a very narrow box. What are those disempowering, limiting beliefs? How are they impacting you? How are they impacting your decisions? How are they impacting your energy when you have those conversations? Are you going in with confidence when you believe I'm not good enough? Are you going in with this sense of, yeah, I can do this job and I know I can do it really well? Or are we shrinking? you know? So we want to be really clear on the things that are not serving us and keeping us small. Do our best to wipe them out. We want to be really clear about those thoughts and beliefs that make us big, that make us expand, that make us reach for more, that make us believe in possibility, that make us believe that we can go out and get the things that we want. Have a practice around that. It takes time to rewire. So make sure that you have some form of a practice around these are the things that I'm going to do prior to these conversations. What is the main skill you want to fully embrace and speak to in negotiation conversations? We have to be connected to our sense of value, to our sense of worthiness. I know I am capable of doing this. I know of the value I will provide to an organization because this is who I am, and this is how I show up, and this is what I've already done, and this is what I'm willing to do in the future. We have to be connected to that. You have to practice that if this does not come naturally to you. It doesn't come naturally to many of us. So we have to really practice it. Write down your list. What comes naturally to me? What is my superpower? What excites me? What do I feel passionate about? What do I look forward to in my day? You've got to know what that is and understand how valuable it is, how important it is. Again, as a business owner, I've been so lucky that I work with people that are so excited about the thing they do. And a lot of those things I know nothing about, but I look at them and I'm like, you're thrilled to be talking about yogurt. And I love that. I love that. So let yourself get lit up with what excites you and what you feel so motivated to do in the day. You also, the last thing that we're going to remember to do is to refine those skills that we're not great about and be prepared to speak to that as well, not in a diminishing way. Again, we want to be careful not to go, well, I know that no. This is an area that I want to focus on. This is an area I know I can improve. I'm actively working on it. Here's my plan. Those are two totally different energies, right? So this work matters. Your money matters. Your financial trajectory matters. This has such huge impact for you in so many ways. And I will also say that the more aligned I became with my personal value and worthiness, the more my work became aligned with who I am, the more passionate I became about what I was doing because I knew what I was good at. I knew what I could do in the world, and that felt great. So this doesn't just matter in regards to your financial stability and trajectory. This also is important for your overall happiness and satisfaction. We're all going to be working for a long time. We might as well enjoy it, right? So that is it for the training. I do believe that we're going to do a quick Q&A if anyone has any additional questions that they would have. So I think we can open that up now. Anyone have any questions or thoughts or statements or personal stories regarding this that they would want to share?
Hey, so a lot of times in the interview, either my mind goes blank or I'm just not able to articulate any of the experiences or accomplishments that I think put me apart from the other content or the other people applying for the job. What what methods have you used and able to that have allowed you to overcome that?
Yeah, that's such a good one because we're nervous, right? Like it's so nerve-wracking to sit in an interview. And I also think it's uncomfortable, again, to share the things that we're great at. The things that I have done is I write them down and I read them and I read them and I read them and I read them. And I go into every interview so fresh in my mind what I want to say. And so I have never had an interview where I didn't miss something. When that happens, you follow up. You just reach back out. In our conversation, we talked about this. I didn't mention, but I would like to say, da, 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 da. But I do believe, and in my experience, writing it down physically, reading it, reading it, reading it, reading it, reading it, reading it, reading it. You're just literally drilling it into your mind. And preparation is just so valuable. It's the part you don't want to miss, because the more prepared you are, the more you have done that work, the easier it's going to come. It just is. The more fresh it will be in your mind. But yeah, it's going to happen that you're going to blank. Do your best to prepare and then follow up otherwise. And I think too, as someone who has been in, a hiring manager, anytime someone follows up, I'm always like, that's great. They want it. They're reaching back out. They're excited about this position. So I think even that demonstrates a lot to a hiring manager. Great question. Anyone else have another thought? Experience?
Sorry, is it
Yeah.
okay? So I love that. You referenced sports a couple times. I played rugby here at UVU for a little while, but there's this quote I really like that says, when under pressure, we don't rise to the level of our expectations, we fall to the level of our training. So this whole system that you've established about supplanting our false beliefs or our insecurities with tangibles, really honing in on what our strengths are, and then like identifying what we really need to work on in reality. I think it's an excellent way to fall to the level of your training. You said you write these things down, you read them, reasserting who you are makes it so much easier to do in an interview. If you've told yourself who you are 10,000 times, when someone asks you, it's very easy to tell them. So I just love how it's like a very natural process of, okay, we establish our worth, we hone in our strengths, and we find a process to eliminate our weaknesses. And then now we know who we are. We can tell them who we are.
You said it perfectly. Thank you.
Yeah, I was thinking of two experiences while I heard you talking. One of them, I was working, giving away cell phones out at the Workforce Services in Tula for a job. And I sat at a table next to a woman who was a large corporation that was locating themselves out in Tula. She was interviewing. She had scheduled interviews all day long. So I sat listening to her talk to these people interviewing for the job all day. And then she would talk to one of the workers there and say, well, this is what I thought of this. And 100% of the time, if they mentioned any weakness whatsoever, I know they say you should, have a way to protect yourself and mention something, but she would write it down as their weakness and throw them out. And I thought that is so funny. Second experience I had was managing a weight loss clinic, and I had to sell the programs when the people came in. And I would feel sorry for college students, and give them 25% discount and discount and discount. And they would not take it. But if I just represented the program, sat back and waited, they would take it. It was to do with perceived value. What value do we represent? They perceive whatever it is we're telling them we are. Anyway, that's what I thought.
I love those examples. Thank you so much. And with the weakness thing, we want to be strategic. I mean, if we're going into like a sales position, I don't think it's a good idea to say, I feel really nervous to pick up the phone. Right? Like we have to be in alignment with our value matching the position. But what I can say when we're speaking to our gap, or we're speaking to an area of opportunity, again, this is something we've got to practice and speak to eloquently, but it looks more like these are the areas I'm great at. I see that this position has these tasks. I have not yet done them. Here's what I personally plan to do to provide value in those areas and to develop those skills. And here are things that I've done in the past that prove I can do that. So maybe I haven't done it before, but I can tell you an example of when I didn't know what I was doing in the past. And here's how I figured it out. And this is the determination that I demonstrated in mastering those tasks in the past. And I will do the same for this thing. So that's how we can kind of speak to those gaps that we might have. We want to be strategic with them. Anyone else? Oh.
As someone I recently started a job last year in April and I'm coming up on a year of employment in a new role that I had never been in before. And I was wondering your advice, when is an appropriate time to have a negotiation conversation? On one of your slides, it said employers expect them.
Mm-hmm.
Is it when you feel like you deserve that you should be making more money, or is there kind of like a time frame? I'm just curious your thoughts on that.
That is such a good question. The next training in this series is on comp strategy. That's Britt will be giving that training, and she is an HR professional. It's an excellent training because it talks about how an organization determines all of those things. So the easiest way to do that is in the initial interview conversations to ask, what is this organization's timeline regarding raises, regarding promotions? When can I expect to have a conversation regarding my growth and the aligned new salary? So it's really great to have those conversations in your interview and to understand what the organization does as a whole or doesn't do as a whole. But I would say if you're coming up on a year, you could always prep that with your manager and just say, come prepared as we're discussing. Here are the areas that I know that I've had impact on the organization. We're using the STAR method. I've impacted it in this way, these specific numbers. I would like to have some conversations regarding, an increased salary. Can we put that on the calendar, And so I would come into that conversation with what you've done based on these things. I feel like I would like to have these conversations. Is it appropriate to have it around my year mark or whatever? So I think you can absolutely pitch that after a year of working somewhere. I think that's appropriate. Some organizations are 6 months. I worked for a company that they did it every 6 months, and they would have a review of your performance, and you could have a 6-month increase. So it just depends on the organization, but if it hasn't been clearly defined, I do think it's appropriate after a year to at least have that conversation. And in that conversation, you can say, if not now, when? When should I expect to have these conversations or have an increase? Thank you. Anyone else? So I want to appreciate each and every one of you for not only being here, but contributing. I appreciate the thoughts you had. I appreciate the vulnerability. A lot of these things can feel vulnerable to speak to, but there are things that we all have. And so I just want to thank you for sharing that. And I want to thank you for being here. Hopefully you can take away, if it's even 1 or 2 small things that help you shift into entering into those conversations as a really empowered person. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have it all figured out. But when we do have that solid sense of value and worthiness, I promise you that comes through and that will have impact. So hopefully you'll have success in your upcoming conversations. And thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
I'd like to thank Jo very much for her remarks this morning. I think we all had some time to reflect and some practical steps to follow to move forward in our careers. Very nice and very compelling. Thank you. And thank you for sharing your own experiences. That was very relatable. There's a flyer on your table about our upcoming events. So there are 2 more events in this particular series. And then we also will have another event in April. So the Business Impact Lab Den meets once a month during the academic year on the 3rd Wednesday of the month. So we'd like to invite all of you to come again, and Joe will be returning in March for another session. So I'd also like to thank Joe by giving her a little gift. That's for you. And yes. And thank you for coming. Enjoy your day, and we hope to see you again. And Business Impact Lab people, can you come up for a photo? And Natalie and